When Diddy was finally arrested by Homeland Security after nearly a year of mounting lawsuits and dark accusations, no one was shocked. If Diddy had ever been known for one thing, it was being unsettling. It never took much effort, or any at all, to sense something was seriously off about him. Inappropriate ties to a teenage Justin Bieber and Usher, whispered links to the deaths of Biggie and Tupac, a constant craving for attention, and even worse behavior that can't be mentioned early in a YouTube video. Basically, people had long suspected Diddy wasn't the generous, mindful music mogul his PR team tried to portray. So I had two paths. Either wallow in that failure and quit, or make the choice to rise above it. Because when you're stuck in darkness, it's tempting to wait for a light to find you. But the only way out is to move forward, face your fears, and become your own light. Behind the big school donations and activism, a sinister undertone always lurked. One that even a billion-dollar fortune couldn't fully hide. You don't end up linked to murder and theft by accident. I'm a savage. Whatever I want, I take. But it wasn't until his arrest, when a mask came off, that the real Diddy came into focus. He wasn't a flawed hero or a complex icon. When the feds took him in on sex trafficking charges, it was confirmed. Diddy wasn't just problematic, he was evil. The evidence wasn't subtle. It was a final piece, exposing how he spent decades exploiting others until his entire empire looked like a facade built on his twisted desires. Still, Diddy's arrest raised more questions than it answered. We always knew he was dangerous, but now we realize his crimes may have been even worse, possibly rivaling Jeffrey Epstein or Harvey Weinstein. Not just a predator, but the head of a network committing systemic abuse. Which begs the question, how did he manage to get away with it all for so long? And more chillingly, who else was in on it? Which of his many celebrity friends and powerful associates knew and said nothing? The scale of Diddy's alleged crimes, combined with his reach in the music world, suggests something far bigger and darker than most ever imagined. In fact, his arrest doesn't just resolve things. It opens up new, terrifying questions. So what exactly was Diddy hiding? To hear Diddy tell it, he's a hero of his own story. Throughout his career, he spent enormous time and money shaping public perception. Even in 2021, shortly before his arrest, he gave a major interview to Vanity Fair, trying to frame himself as a man with divine purpose. In that interview, titled With Love, Sean Combs, he claimed that God sent him on a mission. "What's your purpose?" he recalled asking himself. "I'm making money and changing the game, but is that my real purpose?" He said after praying deeply, God told him his true purpose was to help save the black race. That's what he said. This, from the same man who trapped black artists in unfair contracts, profited off their work, lied about the deaths of black kids at his concerts, and abandoned them when it mattered. This, from a man who let Shine go to prison for a decade to protect himself, and who allegedly groomed young Usher. And let's not forget the long-standing rumors that he ordered the hit on Biggie Smalls, his close friend and business partner. That's the man who claimed he was here to save black people? The irony is almost absurd. And even more bizarre is what else he said in that same article. Around that time, he'd launched a weird rebranding campaign, going by the name Love, talking about justice and equality in hollow, vague terms. He claimed the Me Too movement had inspired him to push for big change. The article even said he launched a diversity training program called the Excellence Program, designed to help new entertainment execs from marginalized communities. But most outrageous of all, he claimed he wasn't focused on personal success anymore, but real, widespread community change. As if he had ever done anything but exploit and harm. Even back then, people were calling out his hypocrisy. His business history was far from loving. Now, knowing what we know, the Vanity Fair article and others from that time reveal just how calculated Diddy's deception really was. While claiming to uplift the black community, he was being accused of harming it behind closed doors. Even just months before Cassie's lawsuit, which shattered his public image, he received the Global Icon Award at the VMAs and was given the key to NYC by Eric Adams. He worked hard to maintain that polished image of the self-made, inspirational billionaire. To many, Diddy looked like the man who founded schools and charities, a symbol of success and black excellence. But that image, too, was fake. In 2016, He opened a charter school in Harlem and praised himself for giving back. But later, parents said the school was poorly run, had high staff turnover, and was unsafe. But Diddy kept chasing attention, chasing praise for doing the very minimum, while his shady behavior continued unchecked. A normal person, after committing so many terrible acts, would lay low. But not Diddy. His arrogance and need for fame drove him to keep showing up. Motivational speeches, PR stunts, yacht videos, he never stopped. And that need to be seen, to control his narrative, likely helped bring about his downfall. If he hadn't worked so hard to be everywhere, maybe his crimes wouldn't have been exposed so publicly. But now, sitting in a federal jail awaiting trial, facing 15 years to life, his efforts to rewrite reality have collapsed. Take his own biography as an example. It claims that at 2 years old, Diddy found his passion when his mom dressed him up for a daycare fashion show. The spotlight hit him, and according to Diddy, he embraced it immediately. "I came out and tried to steal the show," he said. That same desire to be the center of attention followed him throughout life. The book calls him enormously talented and regularly controversial, claiming he reshaped hip-hop. But it reads more like a comedy sketch than a real account. This kind of self-mythologizing shows how out of touch he was. Despite having money and power, he couldn't manage to stay out of the spotlight long enough to cover up his horrendous crimes. Rumors about him had been around for years. Jokes about needing to sleep with Diddy to get a record deal were common, to the point where most people repeating them didn't even realize the truth behind them. Even major stars like Eminem, 50 Cent, Cat Williams, and Kanye had spoken out against Diddy publicly. And without the rumors, his business record was already damning. Everyone knew he took advantage of his artists. That wasn't speculation, it was fact. What made it worse was how desperately he sought fame and praise. He wasn't just corrupt behind closed doors. He was loudly celebrating himself in public, as if daring people to call him out. And now, with Diddy locked up awaiting trial, the secret's out. He wasn't just shady. He was something far more dangerous and far more evil. Diddy was often labeled an unethical businessman. But what if that was just the surface? What if those shady business practices were merely a cover for something far darker? All those whispers and rumors?
If you're enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video.
They weren't just true, they were only the beginning. And if you really want to understand what was happening behind the scenes, the best place to start is with the women in his life. Diddy's romantic partners were some of the few people who truly knew him, the ones closest to him during the most vulnerable moments. So, when allegations began surfacing about his true character, naturally, that's where the public turned first. He had a long-time relationship with model Kim Porter from 1994 to 2007, then dated singer Cassie Ventura from 2007 to 2018. He's also been linked romantically to Jennifer Lopez, Cameron Diaz, Young Miami, and others. These women could potentially shed light on the real story behind Diddy's private life, at least the ones who are still alive. Kim Porter was arguably the most prominent woman in Diddy's life. She met him while working as a receptionist at Uptown Records, his first label. They were in an on and off relationship for nearly 15 years, during which they had 3 children together. Diddy even adopted her first son, Quincy. Kim was more than just a partner. She was a successful actress and model who appeared on magazine covers and played a vital role in launching Janelle Monáe's career. She also ran a lifestyle company in Atlanta. But in 2018, Kim's life was cut short by what was called a sudden case of pneumonia at just 47 years old. Diddy was devastated. This was the mother of his children, someone deeply important to him. Gone. Just like that, he posted countless tributes, saying things like, "For the last 3 days I've been trying to wake up from this nightmare, but I haven't. And we were more than soulmates. We were some other *T, and I still miss you so much." But the heartfelt tributes took on a much darker tone when conspiracy theories about Kim's death started gaining traction. You see, the circumstances around Kim's passing were strange, suspicious, even. She was only 47, living in a luxury LA neighborhood. with access to health care and any medication she might need. So, how does someone like that suddenly die from pneumonia in under 4 days at home without even making it to a hospital? That's a fair question. Young, wealthy, and otherwise healthy people don't typically die of pneumonia out of the blue. According to years of rumors and tabloid speculation, Kim's death might not be as simple as her official cause suggests. One of the more disturbing theories is that she was writing a tell-all book that would expose Diddy's abusive behavior and toxic character right before she passed. Given what we now know about how Diddy has treated women, it's not that hard to believe her relationship might have resembled what later came out about Cassie. And the theories go even deeper. For starters, Kim's autopsy remained inconclusive for over 2 months. The pneumonia diagnosis wasn't even confirmed until a different coroner was assigned. On top of that, people have pointed out that pneumonia can allegedly be triggered by ricin, a deadly chemical extractable from castor beans. While none of this is officially confirmed, the questions around Kim Porter's death won't go away. Things only got murkier when a fake memoir titled as Kim's Life Story rocketed to the top of Amazon's bestseller list. It was filled with extreme and false claims, clearly fanfiction, and was quickly pulled from the site. Even worse, the author, a white man named Chris Todd, used a fake pen name Jamal Millwood to pass the book off as authentic. All of that just adds more confusion to a situation already clouded with uncertainty. While the official cause of Kim Porter's death was pneumonia, the mystery and speculation surrounding it have only intensified over time. A rumored unfinished memoir, a questionable autopsy process, and even the death of her original coroner weeks after Diddy's investigations began. These are details that continue to raise red flags. Whether these conspiracy theories are valid or just internet noise, I can't say for sure. But what I can say is this. Losing Kim Porter at only 47 was a tragic event that adds one more disturbing chapter to Diddy's history. And somehow, this might just be the beginning. Another name closely tied to Diddy is Jennifer Lopez. While she's still alive and well, she's remained notably silent since the wave of allegations against him. People were watching closely to see how she might respond, especially because she was right by his side the night of the infamous nightclub shooting that sent rapper Shine to prison for a crime many believe he didn't commit, while Diddy testified against him. At a recent event, Jennifer abruptly ended an autograph signing when asked about her past with Diddy. Understandably, recalling a relationship with someone accused of such serious crimes isn't easy. She once described their relationship as tempestuous and emotionally draining. Reports suggest that Diddy's constant cheating was the reason for their breakup. Her ex-husband also claimed she attended several questionable parties with Diddy during their time together. In recent months, Jennifer Lopez has done everything she can to dodge questions about her connection to him. But when someone runs from even the mention of a name, it starts to feel like they might have something they don't want to reveal. But not everyone stayed silent. In November 2023, Diddy's former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, finally broke her silence. Cassie, a model and singer with multiple Billboard hits, filed a 35-page lawsuit against him, outlining a long list of horrific accusations. This lawsuit confirmed many of the darkest rumors people had heard and added even more disturbing details. Ironically, the lawsuit begins by quoting Diddy's 2022 BET Awards acceptance speech, where he said, "And also Cassie, for holding me down in the dark times." But according to the suit, Cassie wasn't holding Diddy down. She was the one being held down. Literally. Cassie alleged that she endured over a decade of abuse at Diddy's hands. Physical violence, coercion, and even trafficking. He allegedly assaulted her when she tried to leave, physically beat her, blew up a man's car after learning he liked her, forced her to carry a gun just to unnerve her, and introduced her to heavy drugs and alcohol. The lawsuit details how Diddy allegedly took complete control of her life, her finances, and even her body. One of the most disturbing sections is titled, "Mr. Combs Forces Miss Ventura into Sex Trafficking." It claims he routinely made her engage in sex acts with male sex workers, which he called freak-offs, often while drugged, across hotels around the world. Cassie says these experiences left her deeply traumatized, physically and mentally. She suffered severe reactions to the drugs, lived in constant anxiety, and had to arrange these encounters herself. One specific claim even alleges that Diddy once dangled her friend over a hotel balcony. When this lawsuit dropped, it was like a nuclear bomb. Diddy had always seemed like a strange figure in music, but now he was something far worse. No more excuses, no more ignoring it. The monster was exposed. And it didn't stop there. The further you go into the lawsuit, the darker it gets. The claims are too graphic to say out loud, and honestly, too disturbing to read in full. But after all that, Diddy settled with Cassie for $30 million. One day after the lawsuit was filed, he put out a smug and repulsive statement saying that they had decided to resolve the matter amicably, wishing Cassie and her family all the best. Cassie got what she deserved, closure in the form of a ridiculous amount of money, but it didn't matter. The floodgates were open now, because Diddy's behavior quite clearly wasn't isolated. It most likely wasn't just one person. It seemed in all likelihood to be something he built his whole life around, a pathological obsession that he would go to any length to carry out. It had ruined Cassie's life, and was about to be revealed in full. Over the next few months, many more lawsuits would be filed against Diddy. All of them accused him of systematically having a lifestyle centered around doing horrible things to other people. One of the most disturbing lawsuits came from Rodney Lil Rod Jones, a Grammy-nominated producer who worked closely with Diddy for 14 months, producing 9 songs for his album Off the Grid. In a lawsuit he filed in February of 2024, he claimed to have evidence of the following: Meek Mill on Diddy's yacht consorting with underage individuals, Diddy giving laced drinks to underage individuals at his home, and Usher in Diddy's home consorting with underage individuals. There was also a long list of things Diddy did to abuse Rodney throughout a long process of trying to convince him that he would make sure he won Producer of the Year at the Grammys if he agreed to engage in homosexuality with him. In the lawsuit, it's written like this: throughout his time living with Mr. Combs, Mr. Jones was a victim of constant, unsolicited, unauthorized groping and touching of his body parts by Mr. Combs. These events took place in Los Angeles, New York, Florida, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. In addition to the unsolicited and unauthorized touching, Mr. Jones was forced by Mr. Combs to work in his bathroom as Mr. Combs walked around naked and showered in a clear glass enclosure. As a heterosexual Christian man, Mr. Jones was uncomfortable with Mr. C's advances and expressed his discomfort to Mr. C's chief of staff, who responded with, "You know Sean will be Sean." The chief of staff also attempted to downplay Mr. Combs' groping of Mr. Jones as friendly horseplay, stating that those acts were his way of showing that he liked you. There was a lot more. The lawsuit is 73 pages long. It even includes photographic evidence of Cuba Gooding Jr. forcing himself on Rodney Jones, something he has a long and public history of doing. The suit also includes graphic details about Christina Coram, Diddy's long-running chief of staff, describing her as equivalent to Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's former assistant, who was convicted of sex trafficking and is now serving 20 years in prison. The lawsuit says this about Christina Coram: it was important to defendant Coram to have Mr. Combs' drug of choice immediately ready whenever he asked for it. Defendant Coram required all employees, from the butler to the chef to the housekeepers, to walk around with a pouch filled with cocaine, GHB, ecstasy, marijuana, and tea. Defendant Coram also ordered sex workers and prostitutes from Mr. C. She ordered and distributed ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, mushrooms, and more to Mr. Combs and his guests who were present on his rented yacht and in his homes in LA, New York City, and Miami. On multiple occasions, she forced Mr. Jones to carry Mr. Combs' drug pouch against his will. Talking in an interview 6 months after the lawsuit was filed, Rodney Jones revealed that he was living in hiding, unable to find work in the music industry, and afraid for his life. He said this: he's a monster. He'll do whatever is necessary to get exactly what he wants. He doesn't take no for an answer. Diddy's lawyers immediately filed to dismiss the lawsuit from Rodney Jones, calling it cash grab, but it was far too late. The court of public opinion had already decided that everything in it was believable enough to take and run, even with relatively minimal evidence, at least from an outside standpoint. People made up their minds that Diddy was indeed a monster months before the feds ever came to pick him up. His career was already over. You go to old Facebook posts about Christina Coram, not even a public figure before she got named, and hundreds of people are leaving comments calling for her to go to jail, calling her evil and disgusting. Diddy's own Ghislaine Maxwell, And again, this was before Diddy got arrested. Not long after Lil Rod, Dawn Richard filed her own lawsuit as a member of the girl group Donity Kane, the first girl group in history to have their first 2 albums debut at #1. And a former client of Diddy's Bad Boy Records, she knew Diddy very well. She wrote a number of things about her business and personal relationship with Diddy, starting with an affirmation that she herself witnessed Diddy's abuse against Cassie on many occasions. Dawn herself, though, was also a victim of Diddy's abuse all the way back when she met him in 2004 while competing on his MTV show Making the Band. She wrote that Diddy often forced her and her bandmates to rehearse for up to 48 hours straight without food or breaks, with him instilling a culture of fear in all of the women he worked with. She also wrote that as she continued to work with him after her band broke up, he would often force her to take meetings with him while he was in his underwear, or grope her body parts during stylish fittings before concerts and videos. She also wrote about a specific instance in 2010 when he tried to punch in the face after she asked him to stop verbally abusing her in professional environments. Some of the most disturbing lawsuits filed against Diddy, though, have a different set of victims of a very specific age group. There are also other lawsuits that contain a number of claims so horrible I can't read the details on YouTube without this video getting restricted or even taken down. But it does beg the question of whether or not some of these allegations are even real, or if people are just chasing a payout like Cassie Ventura deservedly received. Fraudulent lawsuits are common in Hollywood. But before you make up your mind, I recommend looking into Tony Busby, the lawyer who's representing most of Diddy's alleged victims. He has already filed dozens of lawsuits against Diddy, claiming he will be filing at least 100 more. Some of the unnamed yet alleged accusers claimed to have been under 18 at the time of their interactions with Diddy, with some as young as 10. And Tony Busby himself is a high-profile lawyer with a pretty bad reputation in his hometown of Houston, Texas, notably having previously served as a defense lawyer on the impeachment trial of a Texas politician who had previously been fined by the SEC for securities fraud and accused of political bribery and corruption. However, Tony Busby also prosecuted NFL player Deshaun Watson in a case that resulted in the settling of over 20 claims of sexual misconduct. It's difficult to make a call on whether or not Tony Busby seems like the type of lawyer to file any old claim in the hopes of making a quick buck. Over 120 lawsuits is a shocking amount, but no amount of evil is unbelievable when it comes to what we already know has been confirmed with pictures and video proof of Diddy's actions. Regardless, though, it doesn't matter. No one watching this video has access to Diddy's personal messages, his archives, his texts, or any other inside information that could reveal the truth once and for all. But there is someone who does: the Department of Homeland Security. There were dozens of other lawsuits against Diddy that came out across 2024, and there are still more coming out regularly. The most important one of all, though, was the one titled The United States of America versus Sean Combs. The feds don't arrest you immediately. It took about 10 months from Cassie's lawsuit against Diddy until the day they put him in cuffs in the lobby of a New York City hotel. The reason for this delay was simple: the feds never lose. On the website of the Pew Research Center, you can find statistics about federal criminal conviction rates. In 2022, fewer than 1% of federal criminal defendants were acquitted. That's only 290 people out of 71,000 being let off the hook. But an even more surprising number is that only 1.9% of cases in total went to trial at all. That's because the overwhelmingly common result of being indicted by the feds, in 90% of cases, is that you plead guilty. The feds are so thorough, so on top of their business, that almost no one ever gets let off. The reason why is because they only charge winning cases. Some of the more high-profile federal cases in history have been people like Charles Manson, the conviction of the Unabomber, people like El Chapo, or a long list of international terrorists. The United States government is not going to come after you unless they are very sure you did it. That's why 90% of people who get charged by them just plead guilty to avoid possibly even greater charges and punishment if they take it to trial. The federal government would not risk their reputation by even allowing a chance of falsely charging a high-profile celebrity. There is no way it hasn't happened in the past. And the feds, they took their time with Diddy. because Diddy was still walking around as a free man for months after these lawsuits were coming out. It took over 10 months from the day Cassie filed her lawsuit and cratered Diddy's reputation forever, immediately causing the severance of his sponsored deals and the cancellation of any public appearances, to the day he got arrested. Even though he was cooked immediately, at least in the public eye, he was still a free man. But real consequences weren't far behind, because shortly after Cassie's lawsuit was filed, it seems like the federal government, specifically the Department of Homeland Security, an agency normally known for preventing terrorism and securing the national borders, started taking a pretty close look at Diddy. Just 4 months after Cassie's lawsuit and 1 month after Rodney Jones's lawsuit, the DHS showed up at Diddy's house to take a look around. In March, they raided his homes in Miami and LA, seizing over 95 electronic devices, and reportedly also finding illegal ghost guns and ammo in his house. That same day, Diddy was stopped at an airport just moments before he was going to board his personal jet on a flight to the Caribbean island of Antigua. Whether or not he was trying to flee the U.S. is unconfirmed, but either way, he was not allowed on his own plane and remained in the U.S. The absurd and smug side of the situation was his family's reaction. Diddy has 7 children, many of whom are adults, and ever since Diddy was arrested, denied bail, and had a trial date set, they're still coming out with statements on Instagram saying things like this: "The past month has devastated our family. Many have judged both him and us based on accusations, conspiracy theories, and false narratives that have spiraled into absurdity on social media. We stand united, supporting you every step of the way. We hold on to the truth, know it will prevail, and nothing will break the strength of our family. We miss you and love you, Dad." Again, this is after video proof was shown of Diddy brutally beating his girlfriend. Diddy's mother, Janice, even wrote a letter in support of him, and it's one of the most smug, disgusting things you can possibly read. In the letter, she completely excuses his actions and even uses bizarre guilt trip tactics to make his accusers look bad. She wrote things like this: "I am devastated and profoundly saddened. This seems to be like a public lynching of my son before he has the opportunity to prove his innocence. It's some of the most self-righteous, ridiculous writing I've ever read. Referring to Diddy being held accountable as a public lynching is insane and a horrible insult to the actual victims. Watching the world make jokes and laugh at my son's life crumbling before our eyes is something I'll never forget. It is truly agonizing to watch the world turn against my son so quickly and easily over lies, without ever affording the opportunity to present his side. These lies thrown at him are motivated by those seeking a financial gain, not justice. This injustice has been unbearable for my family. My son is not the monster they painted him to be. I can only pray I am alive to see him speak his truth and be vindicated. If that isn't a ridiculous response to your son getting arrested by the federal government for sexually abusing people, I don't know what is." Even Diddy's own Instagram account has these strangely smug posts celebrating his youngest daughter's 2nd birthday. It's not really something that would stick out if he wasn't in jail for trafficking people, but knowing what we know, it's almost creepy and weird to see him and his team pretending everything's okay when the entire world knows the truth. Diddy already denied everything he did to Cassie, and then ended up admitting it once the proof came out. So how could anyone believe what he's saying outside of that? And it's almost easy to see his family gathering around him and talking about how the truth will prevail and say, "Hey, you know, they know him best. Maybe there's some truth to what he's saying." But looking deeper, the real reason why Diddy's kids are standing by might be because they aren't too different from him. His son Christian was recently named in a lawsuit against Diddy and himself for assaulting a woman in 2022, with an audio recording from the scene being included in the filing. That's not to say Diddy's kids are all involved in his crimes or anything like that, but with their father being an influential billionaire, they stand to lose a lot if he goes away, and gain much more if he remains free. But there's one thing Diddy's team is right about: the fact that the case has become a media circus that is mostly on Diddy's side, with his kids and mother defending him despite the mountain of evidence. It's a terrible look. They're not alone, though. Even Diddy's lawyer called the federal prosecutors racist and claimed that they were trying to bring down a successful black man with their charges, at the same time as he was making strange excuses for Diddy being in possession of massive amounts of baby oil saying it was just how Diddy likes to shop at Costco, buying in bulk. It's almost like everyone involved on Diddy's side can't help themselves but to make outright ridiculous excuses that make no sense at all. I think it shouldn't be a surprise that Diddy's former legal team quit all the way back in June, realizing the case mounting against them was a losing one that they wanted nothing to do with. And I think it should also be mentioned that Diddy's new lawyer was mentored earlier in his career by Harvey Weinstein's defense attorney. Not long ago, Diddy's lawyers filed a motion demanding that the names of his accusers be published to prevent fraudulent false accusations against him. And while maybe that makes sense hypothetically in reality, it turns out that there was a darker, evil side to that request as well. According to prosecutors from an article released just a day after he was arrested, he repeatedly contacted witnesses and victims in the months leading up to his arrest, even offering to pay a victim's rent if she would agree to publicly support him and return. Somehow, he still continued to be straight up evil, even while facing jail for the rest of his life. His ego not letting him realize he should have gone into hiding and shut his mouth a long time ago. That particular victim had texted Diddy to tell him that Cassie's lawsuit was shockingly similar to her own experience with him, only to have him try to bribe her with money on a call that was recorded and is in the possession of prosecutors. From Rolling Stone, alleged witness tampering was a focal point of Southern District of New York prosecutors' argument that he should remain in federal custody. As the high-profile case heads to trial, the former billionaire's long history of obstruction and violence demonstrates that the defendant simply cannot overcome the presumption that no condition or combination of conditions can ensure the safety of the community, said attorney Emily Johnson, one of the prosecutors. In the months leading up to Combs' indictment, prosecutors claimed that Combs and his co-conspirators had constant contact with witnesses over several different methods, sometimes after the witnesses received subpoenas to testify in front of a grand jury. After the feds picked him up and brought him to jail in September, Diddy asked for bail 3 times, offering up a $50 million bond payment. Yet he was denied each time by the judges on the case, with concerns of him being a flight risk and the past precedent of witness intimidation. He currently still sits in a cell at the Metropolitan Detention Center, a notoriously horrific facility. Other former inmates of note include R. Kelly, his cellmate Sam Bankman-Fried, and even Ghislaine Maxwell, a key figure in Jeffrey Epstein's criminal enterprise, among many others. And that's where Diddy's story basically ends. Once a billionaire businessman, an executive and producer known around the world, one of the biggest figures in Hollywood, running one of the biggest 90s and 2000s hip-hop labels ever, helping create some of the largest artists of the time, and being one of the most influential people in entertainment, he now faces 3 counts that, if convicted for all of them, will result in a sentence of at least 15 years, with the possibility for life in prison. And there are still more accusations and evidence coming out on a regular basis. What I'm trying to say here is that Diddy's cards are on the table. The feds know what he did. They know what he's in for. I've said it once, and I'll say it again. 90% of people who get indicted on federal charges just plead guilty immediately to avoid even worse punishment that might happen at a trial. Diddy making all these statements about his innocence, pleading not guilty, his family sticking by him. It means nothing when we've seen a pile of evidence, from videos to text to Diddy's own personal history of being involved with scamming artists out of their royalties, possibly being linked to people's mysterious deaths, and having inappropriate relationships with underage boys. Denying anything that Homeland Security accuses you of doing when the entire world has seen the evidence against you is only further proof that, while Diddy might have been a savvy businessman or a clever entertainer, he's ultimately stupid, a favorite co-worker. So, who was with you this weekend? A bunch of my friends, Diddy, Quincy, Justin Bieber, Sophia, French Montana. This party, I think half the people there were, but naked. Another strange connection is Diddy's relationship with Oprah Winfrey, the billionaire TV host known for her inspiring success story and empathetic personality. She not only attended many of Diddy's infamous parties, but was also known for a close relationship with Harvey Weinstein. There's an absurdity to the self-congratulatory short films where Diddy is standing with Jay-Z in the mirror, talking about black excellence while they drink champagne. And meanwhile, Diddy is running a sex trafficking empire behind the scenes. And somehow, no one has any idea he's a monster, With Diddy abusing so many people for so long, it's all but certain that there are many, many people in powerful places who knew exactly what he was really about and just said nothing. Right now, though, we don't know exactly who knows what or to what degree anyone was involved. At least not for sure. But the photographic evidence is damning, to say the least. With Diddy's trial beginning in May, it's almost certain that a lot more will be revealed over time. Because Diddy wasn't a shadowy character that stayed out of the spotlight as much as possible. He was in the spotlight for so long that there were almost fewer people who didn't associate with him than there were people who stood by his side. But Diddy, who once stood at the top of the mountain, the king of the entertainment industry, controlling and influencing so many people with his face and brands all over the world, is now alone. Not just alone in his cell, but also alone in Hollywood. He's been abandoned by his former friends, all of them scattering as quietly as they can get away from his name. The list of celebrities coming out in support of Diddy is literally empty. It's 0 people. Not one person who he was previously seen with countless times has said a single word to defend him. Because the fact is that a lot of the entertainment industry, these people's careers are make or break based on public opinion. All of these people, if not perceived as relatable or people you could aspire to be, stand to lose a lot of money. Their careers are based entirely on how much attention they get. There's a lot of incentive for them to look good. But is there any incentive for them to be good? Not really. It makes sense that a lot of the people who could have spoken out about Diddy wouldn't, at least from their perspective. Why would you risk your own connections, reputation, and income to speak out against someone around you who had immense power and connections and was willing to threaten people he didn't like? Why would Oprah ever risk her multi-billion-dollar empire and her reputation as a generous, empathetic person for any reason? The same goes for Ellen, Kim Kardashian, LeBron, or Leonardo DiCaprio. You don't get to be where these people are without worshiping money. And when you worship money, there's nothing you'll put before it. Not even speaking out against injustice and evil. In some ways, that makes it easier for a celebrity to get away with something horrible than for a random, regular person. When everyone around you has a brand to protect and so much at stake, they'll never speak out against the person next to them and risk even the tiniest stain on their manufactured persona of perfection. It's totally possible that the list of people who took part in Diddy's abuse could be smaller than you think. But the list of people who knew about it and were perfectly okay to do nothing is probably a mile long. But in that way, does the difference between those two things even matter? Even more than just turning a blind eye? Though there are a lot of real reasons why crimes like Diddy's wouldn't get exposed, even if many people knew about it. Diddy is known to have threatened people with firearms, stalked people he didn't like as a form of intimidation, and even blew up Kid Cudi's Porsche. When he got involved with Cassie during a break in a relationship, he went to great lengths to maintain a dangerous image to the people around him and was even found to have ghost guns in his house. Firearms with serial numbers scratched off that could be more easily used to commit crimes. Basically, many people around Diddy knew that he was willing to do whatever it would take to maintain control. He had no issue threatening or intimidating others, even as we've heard from far back in his music career in the early 90s. Still, though, the silence from Diddy's friends is pretty deafening. It's hard not to start making assumptions because if you're associated with someone and they turn out to be a monster and you never knew about it, you would probably tell everybody that you had no idea what was going on. That's exactly the first thing anyone would say about a friend, a co-worker, or an acquaintance who turns out to be a terrible person. I had no idea. And Diddy had a lot of friends. But suddenly, they're all silent. There's this kind of well-known theory in the aliens community called the Dark Forest Hypothesis. In the Dark Forest Hypothesis, it says that we aren't alone in the universe, but that there are many alien civilizations around us everywhere. It's just that they stay completely silent because they're advanced enough to realize there are many other civilizations who could destroy them instantly. This is obviously hypothetical, but I think it applies to the world of celebrity that Diddy thrived in. If he was the only one involved in the racketeering, the abuse, the trafficking, he would have people sell him up the river immediately. Celebrities love attention. It's their currency. The only reason why that wouldn't be happening is if someone, or maybe everyone, was afraid of what could be said about them if they opened their mouths. Looking at it that way, it makes a lot of sense that almost none of Diddy's peers have said anything about him at all. Tabloids are all over Diddy right now. You never know how real a source might be when it comes to random blogs or magazines, but when it comes to their commentary today, it kind of makes sense. One website wrote this: Diddy is still in total denial, and he actually expected all his high-profile friends to stand up for him, especially his exes like Cameron Diaz and J. Lo. The source continued: he can't wrap his head around the fact that everyone's dropped him. There's a legitimate fear among a huge swath of people in Hollywood that he could seriously embarrass them if he decides to talk about what they shared with him back in the day. There are rumors that he's kept meticulous records and even video recordings of all the crazy stuff that went on at his parties over the years. And it's only adding to everyone's panic. The word is he's got enough dirt to hang half of Hollywood. Of course, these sources could be totally made up, but if they weren't, wouldn't these celebrities always be so quick to speak out and get some attention? Always want to make themselves look like heroes or get their name in the news. These people thrive off of engagement. Why are they quiet now? Why would they pass up an opportunity to make themselves look good or to speak out on an important topic? The only logical answer is because what reflects back on them is either too difficult to talk about, maybe in the case of Justin Bieber or Usher, or because it says something about them as people too. Earlier in the video, I mentioned Diddy's ambition. I think it's clear for a lot of people who reach the point he did that ambition can be a double-edged sword. With ambition, you can go far, from the bottom of the ladder, growing up without two parents in poverty, no opportunities around you, then becoming a billionaire. There's so much that can be done with that power and influence. The unfortunate truth is, though, for most people, not just Diddy, the kind of person who gets to that point of wealth, they don't have anything in their heart that stops them from going too far. Hypothetically, a fast car is useful if you want to get home to visit a sick family member. Going home faster allows you to get home sooner. But if you go too fast and don't pay attention, you might just end up running over 3 old ladies along the way. And so, looking at it like that, Diddy's so-called ambition, his empire, ultimately just became a cover-up for his narcissistic, abusive, psychopathic personality. He wants to be the best. He wants to be a billionaire. He wants to have whatever he wants. But what did he do with all of that energy? He did nothing but build a facade to cover up his pathological need to take advantage of people. I'll quote Cassie's lawyer's response to his apology video. They said, "Kham's most recent statement is more about himself than the people he hurt. The fact that he was only compelled to apologize once his repeated denials were proven false shows his pathetic desperation, and no one will be swayed by his disingenuous words." And that's just Diddy. Looking at the countless people around him who seemed like they were oblivious to his actions at the time, you're left with a chilling realization. There's almost no way Diddy was completely alone. From the Kardashians to Oprah, from Beyonce and Jay-Z to Meek Mill and Ellen DeGeneres. It's not just about one man's crimes. It's about an entire system that values image and wealth over morality and justice. And as we wait for Diddy's trial in May, you're left wondering, how deep does this rabbit hole go? And who else might be implicated in the web of secrets and lies? The fall of Diddy might just be the first domino in a much larger, more sinister picture, one that could shake the very foundations of Hollywood and the music industry as you know it. You can look back through thousands of photos and videos portraying Diddy as a fun guy, party guy, entertainer. And knowing what he was really doing to people behind the scenes casts a massive shadow over the entirety of Hollywood. That he was allowed to do that by his peers in the first place. Diddy obviously isn't the only person like this, though. Bill Cosby, Jeffrey Epstein, Harvey Weinstein, so many others. It's only becoming more and more obvious that influence and power attract a very specific type of person. In a world where public opinion decides who thrives and who gets forgotten, though, the amount of control that he had over people around him more than likely led to a sort of standoff, where many, if not most, people who knew exactly what his true character was would rather have protected themselves and stand up. Not only is that in itself a horrible injustice, but it begs the question, what else is being kept under wraps? A lot of the contents in this video come down to conjecture or clues, but with Diddy in prison until his trial in May, it seems like his prosecutors might know exactly what they're looking for. As of right now, though, it's hard to say that the underbelly of the entertainment industry isn't looking more sinister and evil than anyone ever thought was possible before. If you found this video eye-opening, please give it a thumbs up and share with others who care about uncovering the truth behind the glitz and glamour. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any updates on Diddy's trial and other deep dives into the dark side of the entertainment world. What do you think? How deep does this web of secrets really go? Drop your thoughts and theories in the comments below. I read every single one and love hearing what you think. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, sometimes the biggest monsters are hiding in the brightest spotlight. Stay curious, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next video.